I was quite looking forward to watching Dante's Peak because ordinarily I'm not really an action adventure film kind of person. But every now and then I'll get a craving for something that's quite dramatic and could potentially be full of fabulous cinematography. And to be honest, having watched it, I enjoyed bits of it, and the bits that I enjoyed, I genuinely did like. But I felt like the pacing was really bad. And with regards to the cinematography, yeah, it was quite powerful given that it was released in 1997. I think they did a pretty good job with it, but I think the narrative itself was just, it needed a bit of work and needed to be refined a little bit more. This was released, as I said, in 1997, directed by Roger Donaldson, written by Leslie Bohem, and we have Pierce Brosnan as Harry Dalton and Linda Hamilton as Rachel Wando. And I'll be honest, after I watched it, I thought I'm going to dislike this more than the average rating, but I was quite surprised because I'd heard such good things about it. I was surprised to find that the average rating on IMDb is 6 out of 10, which is not a bad rating as such, but it's not exactly the sign of a film that's as loved by many people as I thought this was. It's also got a Metascore of 43, but I often find that Metascores are often lower than the average opinion, which I know is ironic because it's meant to be an average. But this film is about a town uh, where there's a volcano, a dormant volcano, Dante's Peak, and suddenly there are signs that this volcano may no longer be dormant. It might be about to become an active volcano. And this volcanologist arrives to study this volcano, and honestly, quite early on, I thought we were going to be in for quite a thrilling treat because this is a tiny spoiler for something that happens quite early on, so from now on I will discuss things, but not in any great detail. By no means am I going to explain the ending or what happens after maybe the first half of the film. But early on, we see two dead bodies floating in a river or a lake. I can't remember exactly what it was, a body of water. And I thought, oh, that's quite graphic, that's quite thrilling, and this is really early on in the film. If this is the tone that they maintain throughout, we're in for a treat. But after that point, it became quite boring, and it was mostly just conversations between people in power, people in charge of the town, about what they could do, about ignoring the problem. And yes, for a while that's interesting because it's an interesting look at how people might react. If somebody said that volcano is going to erupt, I don't think most mayors or heads of towns would instantly go, right, evacuate everybody. They'd start to analyse it and actually look at the risks and weigh up the risks of evacuating a town versus, not evacuating several thousand people. But it went on for too long, and it did take, I think, I checked the time when the action actually kicked in, and I think it was about just below the halfway mark when things actually began to be a real threat for the people in the town. And that's a long time to get to what the film is actually about. Not that, as I said, the bits before that were just quite dull. They didn't excite me. If the bits before that had been engaging or had been paced better or the characters themselves were more interesting, I did actually really like Harry Dalton. I thought Pierce Brosnan was great. I thought the character was really interesting. That's definitely something that I enjoyed. And when the scenes were boring or the dialogue wasn't that gripping or the action was just non-existent, his character kind of kept things going for me. But for the most part, I enjoyed it once it kicked in. After the halfway mark, I think things got a lot more intense and a lot more thrilling, but still not so much so that I felt any real sense of threat. Things were falling off of walls, and they were generally giving an idea that the volcano was a possible threat. Whether or not anybody would be in danger, I'm not going to say, of course, but I still kind of felt like not everybody was taking it as seriously, but not in a way that would be an interesting social commentary, but just in a way that kind of lacked the thrilling element. So basically, I liked it enough to watch it once. I got to the end of it and I didn't completely feel like I'd wasted my time. But I can't say I'll ever watch it again. Not a bad film, but certainly not as good as I was expecting.